You're tuned in to another episode of 300 Voices in 300 Days. I'm your host, Tyrone Darden, and again, this is TAAN TV, the African American Network. We're here with one of our 300 Voices, Mr. James Howard. He's a school board trustee for the San Antonio Independent School District, District 2, and he's going to give us his insight on how education is impacting our communities, and over the 300 years, the different contributions that African Americans have made for our community through education and other areas that he knows of. So we'll give Mr. James Howard an opportunity right now just to give us a little bit of information about himself, his role, and then we'll get right into the questions.
Well, as you say, I'm a trustee on the San Antonio Independent School District Board of Education. I was elected in 1998 and re-elected thereafter for 4 terms. I'm in my 5th term and as we speak. I have 2 more years left on that term. I've served on every capacity as far as officers is concerned on the board, as well as president, being the first African American president to serve on the Board of Education in SAISD. A lot of the things that goes on in the public school system is things that a lot of our parents are not aware of, and that's one of the things. And hopefully, this could be a pathway, could be a voice for public education that parents and the general community in general can look at and can pass this along to their children. There's a lot of legacy as far as African American is concerned in education in San Antonio. And just reading the various history that goes on, and a lot of our children are not aware of that. Many of our schools are named after some African Americans that our kids don't even know who they are. And those are some of the legacies that we need to preserve, that we need to make sure our kids understand and learn about those legacies so that can continue. It's been said that if you don't know where you've been, you can't know where you're going. Mm-hmm. And so that's, in my opinion, is what history is all about. And so we want to make sure that the legacy that many people in San Antonio School District, as well as yourself, we want that to continue. We want the kids to know where that legacy is, who these people were, and what they did for our community in the past 300 years. There's a lot of history there.
So let's walk back on this timeline. And since you are a trustee on the school board, I'm pretty sure that you know the history of that. So can you just quickly give us a brief African American timeline of our engagement on the San Antonio Independent School District Board? Well,
our first African American on the Board of Education was Mr. S.J. Davis. Mm-hmm. Mr. Davis was on the board in the late 60s and early 70s. After Mr. Davis was left, Mr. Thomas Gaffney came on board, which was in the mid-80s, mm-hmm. and he stayed on the board until 1998, which I was then re-elected. So through the history of SAISD, there's only been 3 African Americans on the board since that time. Now, we've had other African Americans who were on the board, but not from District 2. But you can't, I don't know if we can say that they're African Americans because they are from, even though they're from African descent, they're from Colombia. Mm-hmm. We had one gentleman that was Colombian who looked African American, but he was African descent, but from Colombia. Gotcha. And so, as far as I know, those are the only African Americans or from individual with African descent that have served on the board in SAISD. And so, as a result of that, though, there has been a lot of individuals who made major contributions to this city over the years because of their education. I guess the foundation of education was started in SAISD. Yes. And you go back to when African Americans could only go to certain schools. Mm-hmm. Like on the west side, you had Grant Elementary, which was an all-black school for elementary kids on the west side. You had Dunbar, which was a junior high school. And on the east side, you had Douglas. You had Douglas, which was the first black high school. Well, I'll take that back. The first black high school in San Antonio, SAISD, was Riverside High School. Mm-hmm. And then Douglas became a high school, and when Douglas closed, Wheatley was built. Yes. And Wheatley served as the only African-American high school up until 1970, which I'm a graduate and a product of SAISD, as well as my kids and my grandkids.
So let's pivot a little bit, still staying on the education piece and staying on the historical part of it. So you did kind of talk about back in the segregation and, when African Americans can only go to the colored schools and whatnot. You mentioned Dunbar and all the different schools. As you said, you was a product of SAISD, and Wheatley was the high school that you went to. Give us a little background on Wheatley, and then just that transition. I guess it would be to Brackenridge and Sam Houston, and just the accomplishments that came out of that high school.
Well, when you look at some of the prominent African Americans in San Antonio, most of them, from the age of, I would say, 60 or older, were products of those schools. And so you're talking about your doctors, many of your lawyers, many of your prominent individual people, African Americans were products of SAISD. And I'm talking about people like Dr. Hilliard. He's a graduate of Wheatley High School, which is, they're getting ready to name the East Side Clinic up here after him. You had Reverend Black, who's a product of the East Side schools. There's so many. I mean, you can name so many. Willie Mitchell, Super Bowl All-Star, Gary Green. These are all products of SAISD. So, there's a long list and a long legacy of prominent individuals, who were products of SAISD, and that's something that our children, our community need to really be proud of.
Excellent, and I think that is interesting information. I know right now the climate is Sam Houston is the African American school, and Eastside is the African American community. But obviously, within our history, we're broader than that, we're deeper than that, and we've been around all parts of the city as well as different schools as well. So I think it's very important for our viewers to understand that and to know that. So going back to you, and since 1998, that was the year I graduated from high school.
You were my first one to give my diplomas out.
Yes, sir.
Hands,
Yes, sir. So I remember that intimately. And full circle, it's going to be 20 years since I've been out of high school, and you've been to be 20 years since you served in the capacity of a board trustee. You, like you said, in pretty much every area, whether it be secretary or you've been the president and things like that. One thing that we have seen in our communities is a succession plan. So S.J. Davis, which I was a student at Jeff Davis when the transition came in my 6th grade year to change the name, so I'm very familiar with him. He seemed to have that 60s to 70s. And we had Thomas Gaffney, who was also on the board as I was elementary, middle school, and then going into high school. And then you came. So we've had some consistency in what we've deemed as the African American schools inside of town. What does that climate look like once you graciously and as you deserved go into your retirement from that position? What does that look like moving forward for the next 300 years of our history?
Well, it's going to be very important that we sustain and maintain an African American in that seat. And that's not to diminish any other ethnic group, but it's just important that you need to have that representation of people who look like you. When you have a percentage of 10%, 8%, which is the same percentage as the city reflected in the school district. So what I would like to do is just to try to really mentor someone to really follow behind me, and not, follow my game plan, but their own game plan, but to give them the opportunity and understanding of how they need to go about doing certain things. So it's very important that we sustain and, like I say, maintain that seat with an African American. And I'm looking to, around to see who could do that. And I'm very open to, someone who's committed to the community, someone who's been part of this community, who knows the community. Is important that they understand what the community is about, the culture of this community. So that's going to be very important that whoever fulfills these shoes, that they can carry on that legacy.
So you said earlier, a lot of not just our viewers, but a lot of people in general don't really understand the role of the school board, the type of authority they have and things like that. But even outside of that, just the impact they have on the quality of life in our communities. And so just because you have been in this position and have had a close look on progress or regression, however you want to look at it over the last 20 years, and I know you're aware of the impact that education has on economics, on housing, on overall quality of life. If you can give a brief summation over the development or the progress of this community that you've been serving over the last 20 years, 1998, coming up on 2018, what have you seen? The pluses, the deltas, the things we've improved on, the things we've made major gains on. What can you share with our viewers on that? And before you respond, like I said, he's been our leader for 2 decades, and I visit the school, I go to the different banquets and things. One thing that Brother Howard said that really was impactful to me, you were talking about negative things in the community, and you turn on the news and it's negative this, negative that, or Sam Houston this, East Side that. But at the end of the day, it's no one else's role to tell our story, but us to tell our story.
Exactly.
And so you said that maybe 4 or 5 years ago, maybe 6 years ago, in the cafeteria of Sam Houston. I'll never forget it. And I think that's key because you can do a lot of positive things, but if you're not the one telling that story, no one will ever get that information. So again, share with our viewers over the last 20 years, what has been the story that you've witnessed, that you've been a part of, that you've been able to impact in a positive way?
Well, one of the things, one of the big rewards, as far as I'm concerned, and being on the school board, is to see kids graduate and be successful after graduation. And being successful doesn't necessarily mean a college education. It just means that you being a productive citizen, that you got a good job, that you're taking care of your family, or maybe that you did go to post-secondary education and got a degree, or you went to the military and transitioned that into a positive career. And so those are the positive things. That's what I get a reward for, is when I hand a kid his diploma and shake their hand, and knowing that they got a promising career, a promising future ahead of them, nothing else beats that. I mean, that's a feeling that's unimaginable. And so one of the things I would like, for this community to continue to do, as like you just said, continue to tell your story, because these people are not going to tell the story the right way anyway. And there's so many positive stories coming out on the East Side. You don't hear that. All you hear is the gun battles, the robberies, the road rage, or what have you. But you don't hear about a young lady being the first a graduate of Sam Houston High School, being the first captain of the rugby team at Harvard University. You don't hear about a young lady who graduated from Sam Houston, graduating from West Point as a commissioned as a second lieutenant this past year. You don't hear about the young man who graduated from Sam Houston, who went to Baylor, who became an All-American. So these are just little stories that's out there. You don't hear about one of the young guys that was developed a robot really, at Sam Houston, and went on to got national recognition for that. You don't hear about our academic team from Sam Houston who ranked number 5 in the whole state. That's unheard of. But what you do hear is that a fight broke out in front of Sam Houston. Or you hear, a car wreck, or, all this negative stuff. So it's about telling our story positive, being positive, and, forget what they're telling you, Don't let them tell your story, you tell your story. Don't be them, be you.
So you heard it here first. So in closing, I'm gonna go ahead and put you on the spot. So we said we're gonna go from the past to the present. So being in your position over 20 years, I'm pretty sure there have been a young person or some young people that are very like enlightening, like wow, they're gonna be someone, or they have become someone. And growing up in this community, going to school in this community, being a part of this community, I'm pretty sure as a young person, there was a teacher, a principal, a business person, someone in the community that you looked up to, that you aspired to be, or that pushed you. So if there was someone, name someone, put someone out there, honor someone from your past, as you was a child, you was a youth, that you saw that, that's someone I wouldn't mind modeling my life around. But then also a young person over these last 20 years that you looked at and you said, wow, they're going to be somebody, and they are someone.
Well, I guess probably the most influential person that was in my life was a guy named Coach Carroll.
Okay, I know.
Coach Carroll was the head football coach at Wheatley High School. Although I didn't play football, I was in the band, I was a music person, but he would always encourage me to do the best I can. Because I wasn't a big guy when I was in high school, and he always, if you can't play football, be the best, band player, whatever you can. So that was, something that stuck with me all through life. But at the same time, in encouraging me, he disciplined me too, as well. So at the time when I was getting disciplined, I didn't like it. But as time went by, I understood why it happened. And today I'm a better person for that. And, one of the things, as far as seeing someone promising, I have to, I have to reflect on you. Being a young man, you being one of the first classes that I was able to give diplomas out to at Sam Houston. And I know your story before you got to Sam Houston, and I knew, you had the opportunity to go down the wrong road. I mean, several times. And you kind of tapped on the door a couple of times too.
Still tapping.
But look at you. I mean, you are a role model to a lot of these kids who, who came up similar like you and me.
Yes, sir.
So there is hope. There is, examples out there that, it's not where you come from, it's about who you are. And so I think you could be an excellent role model for a lot of people. My son, I'm proud of what he has done, even though he hasn't really put his talents into full use yet. But he's a 2004 graduate of Sam Houston High School. And, there's a couple of young men that was saying, well, Jared Dillard is another guy. He graduated, went on to play pro football with Jacksonville Jaguars. Now he's a successful practicing attorney in Houston. So those are the type of things, those are the type of examples and role models that I want to share, with the community and let the kids see that you too can be this. It's no joke to saying, you can be whatever you want to be. That's true. That's for real. All you have to do is do it. Ain't nothing to it but to do it.
Ain't nothing to it but to do it.
There you go.
And with that said, this has been James Howard. He's one voice of 300 for our 300 Voices in 300 Days series. Thanks for tuning in to TAAN TV, the African American Network. This is Tyrone Darden. Hope to see you soon.